And can I get now a nomination for a chair? Vic?
I'll nominate Tracy.
Any second?
Thank you, Vic. I'll receive that nomination.
Councilmember Steinmetz, were you seconding it or did you have a nomination? Okay. So Tracy, you are the chair and I'll let you take the meeting over.
Thank you, Tara. Well, thanks, you guys. I appreciate that. So we'll move forward. I appreciate getting the, let's see, I did get the public safety emergency management work plan, the draft work plan. And
Tracy,
I don't think I received, go ahead, Michael.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Tara, is it typical you guys elect a deputy chair?
Yes, I thought Tracy, I thought that would be taken over by the chair.
Okay, so thank you for that. Okay, so it's time to elect a vice chair for this committee. So do we have any nominations? Well, yes, Harry.
I haven't asked if he'd be interested, but Vic, are you interested in being the vice chair?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, nominate Vic.
I second that. All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, Vic is the vice chair for the Public Safety Emergency Management Committee. Thanks for stepping up, Vic, and Harry, thanks for the nomination. So I apologize, but you know what? I don't think I have an agenda pulled up. So I pulled up the draft work plan and I was
Tracy, I think the next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was in December.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from December?
I'll move.
Was that a second? Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the minutes are approved and we move on to the second thing. If you guys could give me just a moment, I'm still trying to pull up the agenda. And so I apologize for that and thank you for your patience. Okay.
If I may, Tracy, the next item was going to be, the chief was just presenting his work plan for discussion at the next meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. For some reason, I don't have it. So I'm going to lean on you for that. Chief, go ahead and I'm going to hand the baton to you and we'll pull up this. Did you all receive a copy of the draft work plan in the email today? Everybody did? Good. Okay, I have that pulled up. Go ahead, Chief. I'm going to hand the baton to you.
Well, I have not seen, did Shannon get a chance to add the emergency management portion to the work plan?
No, Ken, I wasn't able to get that completed this afternoon.
Okay, so really, I put down some areas of general interest that from the police department perspective, and I believe prior to the next meeting, Shannon will have some areas on emergency management to add to round out the work plan. So I don't know if you guys wanted to review that and then bring it up for further discussion at the next meeting. That was my understanding.
The emergency management portion?
No, the whole thing. I thought today was just to present it so you guys would have it. And then at the next meeting, there would be additional information and we would adopt it.
So if Shannon, when do you think you would be able to get those to us? If do you think it's appropriate? We could, what if we just went over the, your submission, Ken, and then have a chance to review what Shannon might submit. And then if we could say first that we would at least review it carefully before the next meeting, then it would just be discussion or notes. Yes, Michael.
Oh, sorry, Ken, just before you, I was thinking it might be valuable for you guys, of course, like Tracy suggesting, review it. But if you were to say in May, for example, the chief had residential parking zones towing ordinance to look at. If you could agree that would be something you'd like to review, then the PD could put that together for that May meeting, in addition to you guys reviewing the rest of the work plan and discussing it at the May meeting. Does that make sense?
I think that's reasonable. I think
Yeah.
I was going to ask if there's, is there anything on there, that is really time sensitive and something we need to look at, prior to our meeting, or if we need to have a meeting with the chief to discuss some of these things, we could do that. But if there's something, because I'm looking at, we're kind of 90 days behind the ball on this, and so whatever we can do to expedite some of this work that is probably planned, but we just needs our review. So if we can expedite it in some way, I'm good with that.
Sure. Kathy, can you share the screen with the plan?
Let me see if I can.
And then Shannon, do you have anything hot that really needs review or feedback before May?
No.
Okay.
Not at this time, no, unless there's something that one of you wanted me to bring forward to present, or if there was something that Michael thought that we should take to the committee to review. I'm more than happy to bring anything forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Harry.
Yeah, I just kind of getting back to that residential parking zone towing ordinance that we just passed. I want a better understanding of why section 2 is necessary. And I'm not trying to challenge it. I don't understand why it's there, I guess maybe is the best way. So I don't know if the appropriate thing to do is have a discussion about that, but I wanted to sort of put that as a question that I would like to get answered so that I understand it better.
Okay, so can we have a placeholder for that as Harry, hold that thought. And
Yeah,
then
that's fine.
we'll pull the work plan up, and then when we get to that, we can talk about if we're going to discuss that, if any of it needs to be discussed today, or can we discuss it today, or put it up. It almost seems like it would be nice. You feel like you would like to have a better understanding before May, is kind of what you're saying.
Did that work plan show up on your screen? It
Yes.
did. There you go. Can you all see it? Yes, thanks.
Yes,
Okay.
I could see it.
So based upon the last meeting and what Councilmember Steinmetz had just brought up, we wanted to have that discussion at the first meeting where we could really have a discussion. I have assigned Commander Richards to go out and research other cities' ordinances and residential parking zones, so we could have a much fuller and more robust discussion along those lines. So if it's okay with you, committee, I think we could be better prepared to address Councilmember Steinmetz's question regarding section 2 of the ordinance, and then do some research or further research prior to the next meeting.
How do you feel about that, Harry? Are you feeling pressed to understand that because you have something else pending in regard to your answer? Are you good to go ahead and wait for that discussion in May?
I kind of like the research, or sort of a research memo, if we could, before the meeting, so that we can catch up to where everybody else is and then come in with some questions if necessary. Would that be possible?
What do you mean by that? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ken.
Yeah, we can do that. We'll put something together within the next week or two, but certainly with plenty of time prior to the next to the May meeting for sure.
Yeah, and it's my understanding that Matt did a fair amount of research on the initial ordinance of at least the time frame, what it was, and I'm not that interested in the 72 hours. I think that's probably a pretty good, nice, solid thing, but it's the discretionary part of section 2, and just understanding that a little bit better and why that's necessary. So.
And so we will cover that. But what I also want to cover, there was the question about, because that ordinance had already passed, I wanted to focus on the question that council members had regarding, should we have a residential parking zone? And my understanding is some cities have successful programs and some not so much. And I think out of fairness to the question that was asked, that we should research that aspect of the discussion. And then if we need to clarify some of the existing ordinance that the council already approved, we could do that also, that section.
Madam
Yeah,
Chair, I just want to make a point. And Chief, we may need to discuss this a little bit. My sense of going to a residential zone type of approach exceeds what was intended. And I think that there's resources that would need to be devoted to that. If that's what we want to look at, we could, but I think that's a larger discussion. And the other thing is, I appreciate, you asking Patty to do that research. I want everyone to be aware also, Patty is our operations commander. So that's in addition to her already significant duties. So Chief, just, I don't know if if you want to respond directly to the towing ordinance, that's one thing. I think if we want to start talking about residential zones, that's maybe an additional amount, which the committee could consider, but I just want to make that distinction. It's not all one thing.
Michael, I think I may be able to offer at least a partial answer to Mr. Steinmetz's question about the ordinance we passed last Thursday, if we're okay with that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
And
Matt.
that section, part of that was inspired by, there have been times when PD has come to me and asked what we can do with specific parking problems. Probably the most notable being Redondo. And we had, what was it, maybe 2 years ago, we had a special push down there to sort of change the patterns down there. We didn't want, dealing with the racing and people congregating there. And so I looked into the city's authority to create limited parking zones, such, a couple hours, limited time in specific areas, such as on Redondo Beach Drive, versus just having it free for all. People could park however long they wanted. And what I found was that Des Moines many years ago had an ordinance that allowed the police chief to sign areas to limit parking. That had been repealed many years ago, and I'm not sure why the city council at that point removed that authority. So then the question is, does the city have authority at all to limit parking without having the city council specifically pass an ordinance, for that specific location? Arguably, the Public Works Director does under, I think it's Title 47 as adopted through the wax of the model traffic ordinance that we have adopted through Title 10 of the Des Moines Municipal Code. And we did do some signing down at Redondo, which I believe had very positive effects for the neighborhood down there. And I think we could, sign downtown with 2-hour zones if that was necessary. But I don't, from my perspective, I don't like if someone challenges a parking ticket, they bring up that the defense that the city did not have the authority to put up those signs, and I have to go through. Des Moines has adopted the model traffic ordinance. Model traffic ordinance points to this WAC, which points to Title 47, which arguably gives the Public Works Director the authority to put up that sign, and therefore the parking ticket is valid. From my perspective, it's just cleaner to have direct authority for the Public Works Director to, where it's needed, to create 2-hour zones downtown, for example. No overnight parking on Redondo Beach Drive if that's what we need, without having to come to council with each specific restriction. And so that was the intent of Section 2.
I thought that was a great explanation. How do you feel about that, Harry? Do you feel comfortable with that explanation, and or do you still want more specifics and you would like to extend the conversation in May?
I'd still like to extend the conversation.
Okay. So Chief, do you feel like you have enough information from this to know what it is that Councilmember Steinmetz needs in that memo?
Well, I think now, based upon the information and the conversation from the city attorney's office, really to address the issue of Section 2 of the ordinance, the memo should probably come from the city attorney's office to address that specific section, as was just explained. So I guess that would be a better question for Councilmember Steinmetz.
Actually, that's why I
Michael,
brought up the net.
Okay, I saw you raise your hand, Michael. Would you?
Yeah, just, this is like when you're pulling on the rope and you're trying to untie it, the more you try to untie it, the more knots you get. And so I just want to mention something that's kind of relevant to this. When we did the paid parking at the marina, there was quite a bit of discussion, which didn't result in an outcome, an active outcome, but it was, do we want to go to some type of residential parking zone? And that was to provide some potential relief to problems that really never materialized, but that were associated potentially with 6th Avenue. And one of the parts of that discussion, which I think is relevant to this, and I'd rely on the committee to tell us if this would be useful, but at that point, what we said, it's really difficult to do residential parking unless we have some enforcement mechanism. So then the thought was, okay, well, do we want to have a parking officer dedicated to, enforcing parking laws and residential zones and what was going on in Redondo? And then would there be sufficient revenue generated to justify the position? And that discussion, as we did the paid parking and, the 6 didn't really materialize as an issue, but that's something that's been discussed previously. I don't know the breadth of the discussion about this, but I just want to mention that as background, that one of the key pieces we have to really keep in mind is how do we enforce whatever gets passed? And always knowing we're not going to be able to take police off the streets for other reasons and, potentially more significant reasons than simply enforcing parking laws.
So thank you, Michael. So this is what I would like to do. I would like to, because we have the rest of the draft plan to look over, and we're kind of getting into the discussion that was scheduled for May. So what I'd like to do is give Councilmember Steinmetz an opportunity to review what he's asked for. If first of all, is it going to be the attorney's office or the chief? And then whoever is going to produce that memo, if they have enough information or direction to produce it. So do we feel like it's going to be the chief or them or Matt? Who's going
Or
to produce the
combination.
memo? Okay, and yes, Harry.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why I brought up that Matt had already done some of this research was to
Mhm.
avoid duplication and not have Commander Richards doing the same thing. I mean, if it's okay with the city manager, I can talk a little bit more with the assistant city attorney and, just kind of hone in on the issues a little bit and make sure that there's then a decent memo for the rest of the committee when the time comes.
Yeah,
I
then
think
we
that's
could
fine. I think
It's
it's
a
Yes,
casual approach, but I want
conversation.
to make sure it's okay with everybody.
No, thank you. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you feel okay with that, Harry? Do you?
I'm fine with that.
It's probably fine. Are you fine with that, Matt?
That would be fine, yeah.
Okay, good. I'll leave it to you guys to make that appointment, and then after that, we'll come back with for more discussion next month on this, or an update, however it's panning out. Good. So that's for me. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add to me? Okay, Chief, I'm going to hand the baton back to you if you want to go through this month by month.
Yeah, in June, we will talk about, or we're suggesting that we talk about the mental health field response program, flock camera system, which is a kind of a crime fighting tool. Give an animal control update. In July, give a body camera update. We don't have anything scheduled yet for August. Maybe Shannon may have something that we can dedicate that meeting for emergency management. My recollection is generally at least 1 or 2 of those summertime meetings get canceled. So we'll see how that goes. Kathy, your shared screen only goes to August on my screen here. September, I don't know off the top of my head.
Pacific Highway Safety Project update.
Yep.
Is the only thing for September.
And that will probably be a full report. We want to cover basically what happened through the summer months.
Okay.
October's drones.
Yeah, I don't have that on my screen.
I'm trying to scroll it down. It won't scroll down, Chief. So October is drones, November is code enforcement.
And then again, we had December open.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything additional on any of those things, Chief, before we have open for questions?
Tracy, may I?
Yes, go
Um,
ahead, Michael.
So one thing that's kind of coincidental to this, so we're looking right now at the budget retreat being in early September. And it may be that in preparation for that, a lot of vacations, people try to take time off, that it may be wise not to schedule anything for August until that calendar is firmed up.
Oh, that sounds good to me. Any other opinions? Okay. Anything else, Chief, before we open for questions?
Not from me, thank you.
Okay, any questions from council members? I have one. Oh, go ahead.
So what, do we know if the Waterland Parade and the Waterland festivities are going to occur, or, and I know it's a lot to do with the CDC guidelines and public health, and is it, if the trends stay good, is that something that it will go back into place this year? And if so, you know, and it's, I know we're not the operational piece of it, but just for our own information, will we be taking a look at some of the safety protocols relative to that large of a gathering?
So council member, you know, at the moment, that's exactly what we're kind of grappling with, and what looks like a safe way to conduct, you know, events in the beach park, especially at the marina, subject to the safety considerations and subject to the fact that the renovation of the bulkhead is going to take away a significant amount of parking for a period of time. So those are kind of ongoing discussions. I think the first one we're looking at as carefully as we can is it possible to hold fireworks or not on the 4th of July. And then hopefully some of those other events, it's a little later on, we have a better read on what's going on with COVID, and hopefully those can be accommodated. But that's still open to quite a bit of uncertainty. We can share with you what our considerations are, what we talked with Shannon about, what we talked with South King Fire, what we talked about with PD. That's going to be, you know, because the last thing we want is to get caught in an enforcement issue with large numbers of people. So,
right. No, yeah. So just, if it happens, and you know, people haven't gathered like that in a couple of years, so it could be a lot to handle. But just curious.
yeah.
So, Councilmember Pennington, so how about if what would you all think if we had a summer activities update in June? Because the other big event is, I know Blues and Brews was huge. I think it was the largest gathering that we had down there this last year. And so that would be something else, you know, along with whatever other big, what would you think about that? Putting that as a part of the June, just a summer events update?
Yeah, that's fine. Just an update. I'm
Okay.
not looking for us to engage in any operational pieces, but just as a just so that we're aware of, you know. And I'm sure that if those things were going to happen, I'm sure it would be the council would get updated anyway. But that's
Okay.
it.
And if I can just make a quick comment to that concept, just generally speaking, before COVID hit, when we were having large community events like this, I can tell you that the planning was already completed by April. And so it definitely would not be operational because it would be way too late by then. And some could argue it might be too late by now because we've had no direction on what, if anything, is planned for the community this summer. So no planning whatsoever has been done from the police department standpoint because we're not aware of any public events that are officially planned for us to prepare for.
And that makes sense. And yeah, I know usually that part of the work's done by now. So I get it.
Thanks. Harry, do you have anything? Any comments or questions on the work plan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I don't know if everybody's aware, but we're getting a lot of information on animal control. A lot of feedback from constituents. Would it be worthwhile moving that up to May?
Tracy.
And I know there are issues involved there that, you know.
One thing that Councilmember that we're planning for this evening in about 27 minutes is to start the discussion tonight. We're going to ask the chief to just give us an update on animal control. So that'll be kind of
Okay.
filling in the community somewhat as to where we are and what's going on with that. So that may be helpful relative to timing.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like we need a response sometime soon. So that'll probably work.
Yeah, that was going to be my only comment, is an ask for some messaging to help out here because of that. So I'm in agreement with my colleague on that. And so that would be nice if you could give us maybe a little bit of direction or a little help with our public facing messaging about that. So thank you. That was all that I had, I think. Yeah, that's all I had on my notes. So any other questions from staff? Shannon, Tara, Matt, Michael.
Oops, sorry, one last thing. I think also what may be helpful relative to the discussion about the mental health field response and some other aspects of this, body cameras and others, is that at the end of April, we'll do a comprehensive update on where we are with the ARPA money and what's been spent and what has and what's designated, what the process is for all of that. So that will touch several public safety issues. So just you're aware that that'll help with some background as to more of the substantive content discussions that come later.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Thanks. That'll be good. Okay, one last call. If there aren't any other questions, any other questions or comments on the work plan? All right. And just to clarify, so Shannon, you'll come back with a draft and we'll for a little overview next month.
Yep, I will try and get something out to Kathy by the end of the day on Monday.
Okay. Well, good. Thanks for joining us, and we'll reconvene for the council or the study session here shortly. So, meeting adjourned. Thank you.